This episode of Faces of Grand Prairie podcast is brought to you today with the help of these wonderful local business sponsors. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any of the upcoming great interviews. My Generosity Estate Sales has been providing estate liquidation services in Grand Prairie since 2015. They are a trusted member of the Grand Prairie community and a proud affiliate of the Arlington Board of Realtors. Generosity Estate Sales specializes in helping adult children through the emotionally difficult process of liquidating a loved one's estate and helping seniors downsize for their next phase of life. To find out more about their services or follow their upcoming sales, go to mygenerosityestatesales.com. Coffee News is a weekly publication delivered to restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, and anywhere people go to have a bite to eat or wait for service. Everything in Coffee News is fun and entertaining. It is a breath of fresh air for millions of readers tired of hearing only bad news. Coffee News is always positive. At Coffee News of Grand Prairie, their mission is to help small and medium-sized local businesses grow with affordable, exclusive advertising. This means that your ad is being viewed every day. Coffee News editions are placed in businesses where people are waiting for food and service. The distribution locations are chosen carefully to ensure you have the largest viewing audience. With exposure 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, your ad reminds current clients and customers to return to your business for products or services while constantly creating interest for potential new clients or customers. Go to coffeenewsgp.com to learn more. Mansfield Driving Academy is Mansfield's oldest driving school, serving the Grand Prairie, Mansfield, Arlington, and Kennedale areas since 2009. Their state-approved curriculum has been designed for maximum learning and designed to meet students where they are at. They offer both online and in-person classes for the convenience of their students and provide in-car lessons for both learning options. They are a DPS road test site and offer in-person testing options so you don't have to wait in line at the DMV. To find out more about their course packages, visit their website at mansfield-drive.com. Jenna Pecor is a realtor with Bancroft Realty and a proud member of the Arlington Board of Realtors. She's been helping people with their real estate goals in Grand Prairie for over 10 years, with a specialty in liquidating the estates of seniors. In today's real estate market, you need an agent with negotiation skills and experience with current market trends who'll be able to confidently guide you through your transaction. Jenna is that realtor who can make it happen for you one step at a time. Call Jenna at 214-558-4410 for a free consultation if you're thinking about buying or selling a home. And now, on to our episode. Welcome to the Faces of Grand Prairie podcast.
I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about what you do in Grand Prairie.
So, my name is Brian Bondy, and I am now the new president of the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce. We have a little over 650 members, hoping to grow that over the next several years and make a statement for the business community.
Well, that's awesome. When did you start over there?
I started back in September.
Okay.
I've got about a 30-year career in Chambers of Commerce work.
Wow.
Most recently in Granbury, Texas. Before that, Conroe and a few other spots along the way. Chamber work is kind of a lot like superintendents of schools or city managers. It's a nomadic existence. So we go from town to town as we see fit. The Grand Prairie opportunity was too good to pass up. Phenomenal community right in the heart of the Metroplex, and having family close was kind of the icing on the cake.
Oh, do you have family that lives here?
We actually have a daughter and son-in-law that live in Grand Prairie.
Oh, good.
And they've got our grandkids, so the chance to be near them is a big motivator for us.
Now, are they in school?
They're too young for that.
They're too young for that, but they're going to get there.
Eventually. That's right.
Well, so what about Grand Prairie attracted you? Like you say, it's a good community. What do you mean?
So it's culturally diverse. The business community is diverse. You've got tourism, but you've also got financial services, manufacturing, warehousing. And because of its proximity to the airport, Dallas, Fort Worth, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better location.
It's crazy how small, like I always talk about, because I grew up in Grand Prairie, and we remained small for a really long time, but we were always like a big land area, but we were always wanted to stay a small town. But I was like, how did we do this for so long, considering we're literally in the middle of the entire Metroplex,
Exactly.
like spot in the middle. So when, Mayor Jensen became mayor and he started really developing all of these things, I was like, it took long enough, but 161 didn't hurt, having that go through the middle.
Highway access, location, those are two critical factors for companies looking to relocate or expand. And truly, Grand Prairie has both of those. And that's one of the things that makes it so attractive from a business perspective.
Yeah, I agree. So now, are you living here now?
Not yet. We're working on it.
Working on it? You're like, what do they say about people that come from other states, that you got here as fast as you could?
Yeah, absolutely. That is 100% correct.
So what are you thinking so far? What are some of the things that you see and some of the visions that you have, and where do you see the chamber going from here?
Well, we have a lot of opportunity in Grand Prairie, both from a membership and programming perspective. We've got a really strong, committed board of directors. That's, any chamber of commerce, to be successful, you have to have strong volunteer leadership. And, I would say over the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a vision of being very strong for the business community, advocacy for the business community, because that's really what we do best.
I agree. Well, I got to give a shout out to Kevin, because when I was there visiting the other day,
yes.
I came and visited the chamber, which, by the way, where is the Chamber of Commerce for people that don't know?
So we're at 900 Conover Drive. We're just off of 161 as you're getting ready to exit for the Jefferson Street exit.
Yes. And for all those Grand Prairians, it's across the street from the main library.
That's right.
It's that building that's there that you never know what it was. And that's where it is.
But ours looks the same.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I bet those buildings probably are the same age as each other.
They're probably about 40 years old.
Yeah. But I was in there, and Kevin has already connected me with someone else when I went in there just to talk to you.
Yes.
And so he was really good to get us connected. I already met with Bryce, who they have another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really good to see that, because that's exactly what you go in there for, is the connections, is to meet the people, is to get those things. So, so what are you seeing right now? What are you seeing right now with like in-person networking? Are you seeing a lot of businesses that are wanting to do that again? What are you kind of seeing with, what is your feel for the business community right now?
That's a great question. So shortly after I started at the chamber, we sent out a survey to the members, and really the number one thing that they wanted more of is networking opportunities. The pandemic really put us in a hole in terms of person-to-person communications. And let's face it, that's still how things get done. People do business with people they know and trust. An email or a text just isn't the same as sitting across the table from each other, talking about needs, wants, those types of desires. And it's still going to take time, because there's still people that aren't comfortable with that. But we want to maximize those opportunities, and we will be continuing to maximize in-person opportunities for people.
Yeah, it's definitely important. And it's not always fun. Like sometimes in your mind, you go, okay, I got to get up, I got to go do this.
Yes.
But once you get there and you realize, especially if you're just starting and it's intimidating, that's hard for people to walk into a place and be like, who do I talk to? I don't know anybody here. But you have to get better at it. If you're going to be a small business, that is definitely necessary. So I'm working on that myself, and I'm a pretty extroverted person. But
and there is an art to it. Truly, there is.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, former board chair, what he did was, when he went into a room and he had a limited amount of time, most people, when they go into a networking, they typically go in a clockwise formation. What they do is they look for people that they already know. But what he did was he would go in a counterclockwise, and he would introduce himself to people that typically weren't in the same general area, right? But it takes some guts. And one of the things that we try and do at the chamber is make sure that everyone feels welcome. Certainly when I stand outside as people are coming in, I want them to feel welcome and make sure that they feel like they can belong here and be a part of what we're doing.
Sure. So what are some of the opportunities that y'all have right now, like networking opportunities?
So we just had last Friday, we had our business exchange breakfast. We do that every month, the second Friday of the month. We did what we call speed networking. Everybody sat across from somebody, talked for a couple of minutes, and then everybody had to get up and move. And We're going to continue to find different types of networking games that help disarm the discomfort of meeting somebody and help members refine their elevator speeches.
That is a great idea. Because that elevator speech, I just took a note where at Nouveau Desk, which is like a co-working space.
Yes.
And so I went to their networking, and that there was a whole thing that was just about the 30-second elevator pitch. It's harder than you think until you start practicing it.
That's right.
But you find yourself trailing off and kind of talking too much and all those things. So that's an interesting idea, is to have the game aspect. I like that.
Well, here's the other part about it, is that people by their very nature are reluctant to share information unless you're really a strong extrovert. And I'm not really a strong extrovert, but if I've got something prepared, memorized, and is me in my head, I can do that. And in situations like those business exchange breakfasts, all you need to walk away is with one good contact to make the whole time well worthwhile. And that's really what it's about, building relationships. In fact, one of the things that I've started using, because this is our 80th year, 1945 is when the chamber got started.
Wow.
I like to say that we are connecting businesses with people since 1985. 1945.
Yeah. Well, and Grand Prairie's always had a very strong business community.
Yes.
Like if you go back through the newspaper, newspapers.com has all of our digitized, newspapers on it. It's fascinating. I mean, and they had offshoots all over the place. Like they had the Chamber of Commerce, and they had another chamber beside the Chamber of Commerce. And then they had, so it's just always been a very civically minded city,
right.
But also big time about just getting each other business and getting each other contacts. Maybe I've taken that for granted growing up here, and being in other cities, it's not that same way. So Grand Prairie is very special when it comes to that. I will say that.
You make a really good point. When you live here, you don't necessarily see how really cool it is until you go away or go somewhere else and you realize, wow, we really have a good thing going on here.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you said you came from Granbury. How long were you there?
I was there for about 3 years, a little over 3.5 years.
And how big is that of that city compared to our city?
So, Grand Prairie has about 205,000. The city of Granbury has 10,984.
Is it really that small?
Yes, it is.
I did not realize it was that small. So what's the difference between running a Chamber of Commerce in each place?
Well, in Granbury, you kind of have the attitude that if you do business there, you need to belong to the chamber there. Here in Grand Prairie, there are so many municipalities around us that unless a business really feels the need to be involved locally, we have to work a little bit harder to get them to be a part of the organization. And so, you've got Arlington nearby, you've got Grapevine nearby, Irving. And so those are part of the things that we're going to be working on to improve our programming to make us a must-invest organization.
And what is the investment?
We range from $2,500 a year on the high end to $305 for our basic business level. Nice. So for less than $1 a day, somebody can be a member of the chamber and represent their business. And, that always comes with a lot of us have websites, 24/7 access to the internet. I mean, it does make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. Are you noticing that there's a lot of businesses that are very local? Or are you noticing, what are you seeing the most of? Big business, small business?
All business is local, plain and simple.
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean, whether they're a multinational company, but if they have an office here, they're a local business. And we are very much a dominant small business community. However, if you look at the area around Great Southwest, even going, further north and east, there's a lot of business opportunity in this town. Yeah,
there is. And some of them, you think Lockheed is here.
Right.
That's a local business.
That's a local business.
And, that is it. Like all the manufacturing jobs that we've had here, that is what built Grand Prairie. Really, it did. I live in a neighborhood that was built for pilots, to bring pilots and engineers to this location back, during the war.
Right.
So we have a very long history with that kind of, huge, manufacturing plant. But we do have the small businesses. We have a ton of small businesses. And we have a lot of them. And you're right. They're very diverse in the way that what they offer, the ownership, all that. It's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. The chamber just published our 2025 guide to Grand Prairie, which is our membership directory.
Mm-hmm.
But we also had articles in it, and one of them was about the history of aviation in this community.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And it's steeped in tradition. And a lot of the reason why we won World War II was because of planes that were manufactured right here in Grand Prairie.
I know.
I mean, how cool is that?
It's very cool, and I love that we have. Like at Dubisky, they can go and they can get that specialization in mechanics and all
Yes,
that stuff. And we
yes.
have people that are literally leaving, graduating high school and going over to work at Lockheed for six figures.
Six figures, that's correct.
Which is incredible. It's such a good partnership. And so I love that. So what do you have to do to run a chamber of commerce? Like, do you have to be certified? Do you just have to have experience? Did you go to school for it?
No. I spent 15 years in the newspaper business.
Really?
Out of college. And, I had to, as part of my job, be involved with a couple of local chambers of commerce. And when you only have, back in those days, there was only media, print, broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
That was about it, right? And so people do business with people they know and trust. That I keep coming back to that because I built relationships with people through events that the chamber had, business expos, things like that. They ran advertising with me. I got successful. From there, I became a board member for a local chamber of commerce. There's when you really get to learn about how the operation runs. Was an officer for a chamber board for a period of time. And so when the chamber that I eventually cut my teeth on needed a new executive director, several board members came to me and said, Brian, we think you'd be really good at this. And I thought, why not? So I took a pay cut and became a chamber executive. And as of this summer, it'll be 30 years.
Wow. And so you worked in the newspaper. What'd you do there?
Sold advertising.
You sold advertising.
That's the important stuff that goes in a paper.
That's right.
That's what pays the bills.
It is. Like when I go back through and look at the newspapers of from this city, we had a local one for a while. It kind of went down during the 40s and then it came back up after that. But what's really amazing is when you see the advertising in those papers,
Yes.
Because it really is a reflection of a lot of things, socially going on at the time. And for people that live here, you can see that advertising for, Kip's Big Boy and some of the places we had on Main Street. And it's nostalgia.
It is.
But it's such a reflection of its time. You can see the prices and how they've changed. That's really interesting.
Yes, it is.
You see the domestic, like you see women and all the, what's really interesting that I started looking back on. I was talking to a lady named Alex, and her grandmother was a part of it was a Dalworth professional organization for women, which Dalworth was the Black community in Grand Prairie for a long time. And but they had a lot of professional organizations. And so you're looking through the names and it's like, I don't even know your grandmother's name because all the names were the husband's name. So it's like, oh, Mrs., whoever, or Mr. whoever. And I was like, that is crazy. But that's how it was. That's how it was back then.
Absolutely.
But it was fascinating. So newspapers always fascinate me when I go back and look at the past.
So this past year, when I was still in Granbury, the chamber puts on the 4th of July parade, and this past summer was the 50th anniversary of that parade. And kind of like what you were saying, I have to go back to find old parade marshal names and themes and all of that going back into the 70s. And, when you come across a grocery store ad and eggs are 29 cents a dozen and you go to see them today and they're $6 a dozen, boy, do you have an appreciation for the way things were back then.
Oh my gosh, totally. What's really interesting is sometimes the prices haven't changed at all.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, there are some things. I was looking at the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, that's still the same price as it always has been. And it's really interesting when you see how they advertise like medication or some of the elixirs that they had, and all the claims that they were making on it. You're like, oh my. But what's really fascinating is when you read the stories and you realize we're going through a lot of the same stuff even today. It's this kind of the same. People are trying to work out everything that's going on in the world, and the articles it's a lot of reflection of what's going on right now. So time just repeats itself.
Well, it's a really great observation because typically, life is cyclical. I mean, it's the way things are, and things that were going on in the 60s and 70s, they think, well, it's never going to, those are the good old days. No, back then it was just as tough as it is today. May have been even tougher. We don't know. But that's part of perseverance. And that's part of the value of having a newspaper, because that's a historical piece of evidence that says, you know what? Things really aren't that bad if you really want to take a look at it.
And they're not that different.
Yep.
There's the same problems and the same struggles were then too. They're all working out the same things, and they're talking about government, local government and a local, like everything is, it's really interesting when you go through and read it. So I have a question. One of the things as a small business owner that I think a lot of people are also intimidated by is sales, because networking is fine. You can show up, meet a gazillion people. The question is, does it turn into a sale? So with you having done like sales for newspapers, was that a skill that you had to learn? Were you intimidated in the beginning, or how did you learn how to turn that visit or that one-on-one into a sale?
It is 100% a learned skill. You can be Mr. or Mrs. Personality, but if you don't have the skills on knowing what to say, how to say it, when to be quiet, when to speak up, you're going to have a really tough time. I am by my nature an introvert. So in my occupation, I'm what's called an occupational extrovert. and that was what training teaches you, to go out. When you make cold calls, you know that it's going to take you at least 10 to get a yes. And it all turns into a numbers game after that. And some people are cut out for it, some aren't. And when you're in small business, when you hang that shingle, right, you forget that you have to do sales. You can't just do the books. You can't just do the services. You got to do sales, because that's what puts money in your cash register. And that's where the Chamber of Commerce can help you out, because we believe in helping people get together with people. And when that happens, good things happen. That's why I've been doing this for 30 years. I love to see businesses come together as a result of something that we have, and they all of a sudden are starting to do business with other people. That's cool stuff.
It is. And you can have the best idea in the whole wide world, but it doesn't matter if you're not selling it, if you're trying to do it as a business. And I think that's where a lot of small business stops. Everybody gets really excited about the beginning, where you set up. I don't like doing any of the website and all that other stuff that you sometimes need. Yes. But like, you can get stuck doing those monotonous tasks that don't ever lead to a sale. And then you're working so hard, and then you're like, why is my business failing? I see it. And, even if you're going to sell Tupperware, if you're going to sell any of these things, like, you have to have sales in order to survive. And so it can be frustrating if you're going to networking event after networking event, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? Why is nobody buying my product? So what do you tell people in the midst of something like that when they get discouraged? What would you tell them to do next? How would you guide them?
Well, it always comes back to follow your passion. And if you have a product or service that you absolutely love and want other people to be involved with, that's what you have to be able to verbalize, is tell them why this is such an amazing product and how it can help solve their issues. Ultimately, what sales isn't about selling something. It's about helping solve somebody who has a challenge or a problem with what you have, whether it's a product or a service. And as long as you keep it in that kind of a vernacular, you're helping people solve their problems. It's not really selling.
Yeah, it feels like it can. Well, I guess when you go into a place and you're not sure what to say, that's the other thing.
True.
And I've seen people stand there and shaking, just talking in front of people for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And
it can be very intimidating. So you could have all these ideas in your head, but it's like, how do you verbalize them, and how do you get that point across why someone else might need your product? And I've gone through it myself. Everything I do is sales. So I'm a real estate agent. That's all sales. And you're having to constantly change. Like, real estate right now is hard because it's like we're in a totally different market than we were in a couple of years ago.
Very true.
And I've heard something I heard today was, I was listening to a podcast, and it was basically going through the pandemic for real estate purposes. All you had to do was like put a sign in the yard and you would get like 100 offers. But now we're in a skills-based market where, as a real estate agent, you have to really improve your skills, and that's improving your sales and improving getting out there, cold calling and doing those kinds of things. Right. And that's intimidating. But it's like, I'm going through it myself, and it's like, you have to always learn that new thing, get that new it could be going so well, and then all of a sudden it's like something happens that changes it. It happened in 2020. It's like everybody's going along, and then we have a pandemic that changes the entire real estate market.
True.
Now it's like we're coming back out of that. And so it's fascinating it takes so much perseverance to be a small business owner,
Right.
Just to keep on going every single day.
See, one of the things that a lot of us forget about is we need to be good listeners, and we need to ask questions, because there is a depth of information to be gained by asking questions and listening to prospects, listening to customers. And, it's the old adage, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should be listening twice as much as you talk. Well, that's the way it is with a lot of small business. They want to talk about the features and benefits. Oh my God, this is so awesome. You're not going to believe it. Before they ask, what are you looking for? How can I help?
Right. And you're selling them a product that they don't need.
Or they may not know they need if you don't find out what that need is, right?
That's true. That's very, very
and
true.
It's the same thing with a house. You have to listen to what your customers are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to take them to 15 houses if it's not in their wheelhouse for what they're looking for.
That's right. Yeah. And it's definitely a skill. What about follow-up is another one. Do you see that people struggle with that in business?
I've actually seen post-pandemic an increase in the amount of follow-up.
Oh, that's good.
I think people appreciate the not only the business, but the opportunity to build relationships a little bit more. And so I think a natural extension of that is the follow-up. And it's more anecdotally than anything else, but I really feel like, and people are using technology to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't tell you the number of times after I've stayed at a hotel or eaten at a restaurant that I get the survey request. Well, to me, that's follow-up. That means that, I didn't just come in for a meal or put my head on a pillow. They really want to know whether or not it was a good stay. And if you begin to aggregate those survey results, it does help you market your product or service even better.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going through that whole process.
Yes.
Because I've been done with real estate. This will be my 11th year. And so for the past 10 years, it's like, I want to look back on this decade and go back and say, how did I do? How can I do better? And that's intimidating for some people. It's intimidating for me because you might not hear everything that you want to hear. But not everybody does that. But it's good that everybody's getting into the habit of, and I'm trying to get in the habit of, asking for reviews, asking for that feedback, and letting people know that you care, that they're there, and that you want to hear what they have to say. And in real estate, when you have a one-on-one service like a real estate service,
right,
that's hard because every single bit of that is on you.
Yep.
It's like in a hotel. Okay, well, maybe that was the front desk fault, but when you're just a one-on-one business, it's just on you. So it can be very intimidating, but it's a good practice to get into. And Google reviews and all these different reviews, because those really do translate how other people feel about the product that you had.
It creates a perception, yes.
Yes, it does. It does.
And in your case, you're living for referrals because that's an instant customer opportunity. If somebody is pleased with the way you've treated them and gotten them into a place of their dreams, they're going to say, call her, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And that's how you make business happen.
Yeah. So what are some of what do you see the most business-wise that come in? Like, do you see a lot of restaurants? Do you see a lot of, what kind of industry do you see the most of?
All of the above.
All of the above?
Yeah. I mean, when you have another post-pandemic phenomena is the growth of entrepreneurialism. You're seeing a lot of small business people who worked for large companies and, decided, guess what? We've had enough. And they have an idea and they're learning how to monetize those ideas. And not just here, but across the state, across the country. We talk in our chamber forums about how many entrepreneurs that communities are seeing coming post-pandemic. So what we want to be able to do is make sure that we're matching up and offering services that can help them, whether we put them in touch with SCORE or the Small Business Development Center or other folks that can help provide some of that focus, right? Mm. Marketing plans, business plans, financing. It's take that idea and monetize it.
I was just talking about this on Facebook where I said, I really hope that there's a return to that. Because that's another thing you see a lot in especially some of the 50s and 60s newspapers. So many small businesses.
You bet.
So just mom and pop businesses that were just existed. They provided for a family. They were enough to provide for a family. They weren't trying to be the biggest conglomeration that ever existed, but those sustain a family. So I was saying, I'd love to see entrepreneurship come back in full force. I'm really glad to hear that. And you're right. There's a lot of, I mean, in the networking events that I've been to lately, and I've seen a lot of like people getting out of big industries like medical services. I see a lot of like at-home dentistry, at-home chiropractic. And I'm like, that's entrepreneurship in a different way.
Sure is.
And so you're going to get out of those four walls and you're going to go, start your own thing. So it's encouraging. It means people believe in themselves enough and to actually step out and make that, because sometimes it can be really hard.
It is.
You're making a salary and you're like, okay, this is fine. Everything's going fine.
Right.
Sometimes it forces us out of our comfort zone, but into something a lot cooler, You're
pulling the blanket out from underneath your feet. You don't think about it in those terms until you have to make the mortgage payment. So you want to make sure that you're putting all of your energy and efforts into it. Something to kind of put in perspective. Every single business starts out as a small business. It's ones that grow and become successful because they stay committed to who they are, what they're trying to do. And they evolve with the times and the customers and the needs. And that's really, the big corporations, they all started small.
Yeah. What was it? The McDonald's movie? It was the McDonald's about the founder.
Yes.
It was just one place that was doing hamburgers. And I think that they only did hamburgers and fries. And then it grew from there. But not everybody wants to scale their business like that. You can, if you become successful, especially locally.
Right.
That's really important. I remember the best year that I had in real estate was when I bought and sold houses in my own neighborhood. I realized how much business there was just within a mile's radius, not even a mile, like just in the streets of where I live, because I got really, really good at that area. Like I became an expert. I'd been in all these houses. I could talk to people. And then before too long, it's like when you start talking about your product and your service so much, it's like, oh yeah, I've been in that house. You should really go into it. It's a really cool house. Like we should go take a look. And then before too long, somebody's buying it, but that's what happens when you start. And so I think that, getting leads and stuff, there was a huge push for a while to get leads. Like in my industry was Zillow,
right.
And all that, because it seemed easier. And it seemed like an answer to a problem. Like you do want to do social media and you do want to do all that stuff. But it was like, these were just leads that you're paying for. You didn't have to go out and get them. You didn't have to go talk to people. You just got a call and there was a lead on the phone. But that's really going away.
Yes.
So I do think that it's becoming more important to be more local. I don't know. I see it, people are having to try a little bit harder.
Yes.
But that means that much more. So, for me, it's I've never paid for leads that way, but it's that year that I learned how much business could be done just in a small area. I was like, I don't need to go all the way to Timbuktu to try to get my business.
Exactly.
Like, I just don't need to do that.
Look, a good friend of mine who was an author, his name is Glenn Shepard, and he's written a lot of books on leadership and management. And he's got a poster that's 10 principles of business. And the number one thing is work is not for sissies. Work is hard, and it's hard for a reason, because if you want success, you're going to have to work hard at it. There are very, very, very few success stories of instant fame and fortune. It's all comes with hard work. And you can buy a bazillion leads and still end up with those one or two sales that you would have gotten had you just continued to follow up with your own network. Now, granted, there are always going to be exceptions, but in the world of business, for the most part, you have to keep your head focused on what the task is at hand, know your customers, and make sure that your product or services reaches out to them.
Mm-hmm. So going back to, you mentioned a board of directors. So is the Chamber of Commerce a nonprofit?
We are a 501c6 tax-exempt organization.
Okay.
We're not a C3. Those are the charities. Those are the true ones that you can make donations to and write them off. We're a professional business organization based on membership. We are funded three primary ways: our members' annual investments, our programming and special events, and any type of marketing programs that we offer, like the area guide or the map or website.
Okay. And so does every Chamber of Commerce have like a board of directors?
Yes.
And what do they do?
They've set the policy and direction for the organization. And those are business leaders that are elected. And then the staff, where the chambers have staff, are charged with implementing that policy and direction. And that's what my job is.
So how many staff members do y'all have?
We have 4, including myself, 4 full-time people.
And what all do they do?
We have special events, we have membership, and we have minority outreach.
Oh, minority outreach. What is that?
Claudia handles our SEA, which is a academy program, teaching skills for women that are looking to try and better themselves. We are very much an education-focused Chamber of Commerce. We partner very heavily with GPISD CTE department. We know that next generation of employee and business owner is coming from those doors.
CTE is career technology education. And for those that don't know, I went to the last CTE because y'all have those students come and speak to the chamber.
Correct.
I was crying because this one girl, I swear I think she went down to go do like a John Deere competition or something because she came out of the mechanics program.
Right.
And watching those students and what they know, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. Aren't y'all about to have something like that coming up, or did y'all just have them come and speak?
We had them come and speak last week at our luncheon. Yes.
Oh, last week. Okay. So do y'all have any interns that come from the?
We do. We've got an intern, and we help promote internships throughout our membership. Part of the way students get experience is by going into the work world. Mm-hmm. And the more businesses that we have that are willing to take on students, the better those skill sets are going to be when they get out into as a paid employee.
And what are some of the requirements? Like if I wanted them to come learn how to do laundry, could I do that at my house?
No, but thanks for asking.
People, I think that you do have to be a business and a company to be able to have them come do the internship and actually be able to provide them with some type of, what are they actually learning while they're there?
That's correct. I
would love to have some interns come and work for this because I feel like this is such a good, if you're an audiovisual or anything like that, but that's the next step. I'll be reaching out to them because I think our students in this city are amazing.
So what I'm impressed by is the number of career pathways that GPISD offers. I mean, back in my days, if you had shop or auto mechanics, that was about, or home ec,
right?
That was about the choices. And here they've got so many very important pathways that they can choose and literally walk out of high school with not only a diploma, but also an associate's degree and a job. That's just good education.
It is. GPISD does it better than any city I've ever seen.
It's amazing.
It really is. I think that we take that for granted too. That was an innovative move. Dr. Hull, who was the superintendent at the time when she turned GPISD into school of choice, she was very heavy on not every student is going to go to college, but we have to find things that they can. The trades is, in my opinion, where the future of public education is going. I think that it's going back into that. There'll still always be college, obviously,
sure,
but you can see it sprouting up into all these other districts but it doesn't happen that way in any other city the way that I've seen it happen here. And I wish people could go in and see all these campuses because they are unbelievable. Have you ever eaten at the Dubisky restaurant?
I have.
It's delicious.
It's fantastic.
I don't even know how many people know that it exists.
Yes.
It's amazing. Have you been to the Grand Prairie High School?
Have not.
Okay. So they have a whole nursing program in there. I want to go in, and when we took a tour, Dr. Hull was always real good about having realtors come and go in there because she was like, talk about this because it's amazing. They had these, I call them dummies, but they're not dummies at all. They're like these mannequins that are just tied up with all these different kinds of wires, but they look really realistic.
Yes.
And the whole thing is they're trying to simulate
all
these, like one of them gave birth. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And this is what these students get to practice on. And by the time that they graduate, they have an associate's in nursing. That's a huge deal. And it's all paid for with public school, taxpayer money. And it's like, if this is the kind of people that we're, producing out into the world, this is a good program. And I love how they do the internships. That internship program is a really good opportunity.
You can't make a better investment than public education as it relates to career and technical training. Because,
I agree.
What you said earlier is so true. Not everybody's cut out to be go to college. I mean, let's face it. And we went through this period where everybody had to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had to be future focused, right? Well, future focused also means the trades. There's going to be a shortage of nurses. There's going to be a shortage of doctors. We know there's going to be a shortage of plumbers, welders. I mean, and it's right in front of our faces. Every workforce development office across the state, across the country for that matter, is learning about the need for talent recruitment, talent retention, and education.
I was listening to Mike Rowe was doing a podcast about what were they? They were talking about manufacturing jobs, and he goes, and somebody was asking him his foundation, like, how do I find the people that I need? He needed like 100,000 people that were all specialized in this one thing. He's like, they're all in the 8th grade.
Yeah, they are.
Because that's how long it takes to become. And so once you get out of high school, some of these jobs you require an apprenticeship, and it's not paid. Nursing is really hard once you get into that side of it, because you have to not only support yourself, if you've got children and you try to go back to being a nurse, you have to support yourself in a job, and you also have to do your residency or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Doing it the way that we're doing it now, when they graduate with all of that, when you're living with your parents and you don't have any of those financial obligations, that's a really big deal.
It's a game changer.
It is a huge game changer.
Yes.
I need to call them again and say we need a real estate pathway, because inspections, appraisers, surveyors, that all goes into the real estate pathway. All of those jobs need a lot of apprenticeship hours.
Yes.
Like 1,500 hours that you have to work with an actual person that goes through and does all these things. So I wish like that kind of stuff I could see. And if you could become a real estate agent, you can graduate and you're 18 and you can start making money immediately.
That's true.
It always is. That's always
Nothing
nice.
wrong with that.
So what are the things that y'all have coming up, like in the next month, maybe? What are some of the events?
So really looking ahead, our next big event is our golf tournament coming up in May, the May the 9th out at Tangle Ridge. Chambers and golf tournaments is kind of like, peanut butter and jelly.
Mm-hmm.
We've been around forever. And the thing is we try and make it not only fun, but also a great way to connect with other business people. You're networking, you're on the course. What a great opportunity to visit with people, get to know people a little bit better. So that's kind of on the horizon. We do luncheons on a regular basis. We're working to do seminars in May with Frost Bank. I mentioned earlier Glenn Shepard, who does programs all over the United States, universities, Fortune 500 company. We're bringing him to Grand Prairie on May 15th out at Ruthie Jackson Center. He's going to do a seminar on how to lead people and manage a team. So what we're trying to do is really trying to focus in on programming that helps our businesses grow and get stronger.
Are they well attended?
They are.
That's good.
Absolutely.
That's good. What do you know about Ruthie Jackson?
Georgia Clemson's mother, and they were both on council at the same time, which is unheard of, and a true community spirit.
She is an amazing human being. Like, she started a lot of these organizations, honestly. Yes. It's crazy. She had a show called What's Happening in Grand Prairie. I was on it when I was a senior, and I found that video the other day on YouTube, and I was like, oh my God, because we were in a Camelot. We did Camelot for the musical production, and I was on there as a guest, and I'm like, maybe that is in my brain when I started this podcast.
Laying the foundation one, right?
But she was instrumental. I think that it's amazing what one person can do to change an entire community.
True.
And that's exactly where she came from.
Yes.
And her she was pushing to get all these things going. She started the Stork organization. She started the Sir Optimus Club, like all those things. All it takes is that one person that's really passionate and is able to get out there and like say, this is what we need.
So it's a great segue to a friend of mine in the business. His name is Jimmy Casano. He leads chambers on events to help grow their membership. And he said, we have nothing on our grandparents and great-grandparents who built cities on their shoulders, one handshake at a time. And, it's and they're also the ones that built chambers of commerce, one member at a time back in those days. Because if you're coming into a town to do business, here, I need you to be a part of this organization because it's going to be good for your business. And he really puts it into perspective that people like Mrs. Jackson, that's what they would do. They would carry a community on their shoulders and say, no, we need this here. Let's make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get back to that.
She was the one that did the summit. So down there at the summit, she goes, we had an amazing animal shelter. She's like, why do our animals have a better shelter than our seniors do?
Point well made.
Have you been down to the summit?
It's gorgeous.
Oh my gosh. It's the most amazing senior center I've ever seen in my life. And don't call it a senior center. Active seniors, active adults.
Active adults.
Active adult.
Which I'm an active adult now.
My dad, he'll go there to work out sometimes and come here. It just depends on the mood that he's in. But yeah, she's the one that started that, and that anchored this entire development down here at the Epic Waters, and it's incredible. But we've also, Grand Prairie has always been very innovative when it comes to that kind of stuff too. They see a vision, and there's very much a vision. And when I talked to Rick, you should listen to that episode, because Rick Harold talks about a lot of these places and how he got people to participate. When he started, he had graduated from UNT, and then he became like a parks director. And he said, we didn't even have a rec center at the time. It was in not Flower Mound, one of those places, Farmers Branch. And he goes, but we started offering swimming lessons at people's houses. I said, how'd you get people to do that? He goes, I just went door to door and said, would you mind giving us your pool for a couple of hours every week? And I was like, that's incredible. And he goes, yeah. And eventually we were able to build a rec center, but he had a vision. So you have to have that vision,
yes,
and you have to stick with that vision, because those visions take sometimes years to come to fruition.
Great point.
It's that's another thing that's hard for small businesses. When you're in the middle of the life's stressors, and you're trying to be a mom or, be a dad and run a family and all that stuff, trying to have that vision long-term can be kind of challenging.
Yes, it does.
It can be very discouraging because it's not working out exactly as you hoped it would.
And like the commercial says, life comes at you fast.
Yes, it does.
And, sometimes if you don't bob and weave just right, it hits you right between the eyes. And all of a sudden you're back and you have to start over again. And I've seen a lot of people have to start over again because it got to be too much on the carousel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing that we're seeing an increased level of, I want to use the word, it's been used the word a lot, but burnout among people that have, they've been in corporate America. They gave the 24/7, 365, they gave up vacations, they gave up family, and they're starting to say, there's more important things than this right now. And so those companies that can pivot and make their employees the center of their world, not the far end of their world, are the ones that are going to succeed, because the human resource is the most valuable resource at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. That's so are you, when you say burnout, do you mean burnout? That's why they started their own thing, their own business?
All of the above.
Mm-hmm.
You can put in too many hours. Companies change direction, and it's not the same. It's not what I signed up for. There are obviously thousands of reasons that burnout occurs, some physical, some mental, some emotional. But the fact that, and it corresponds with the growth of entrepreneurialism, indicates that people have reached that point where it's like, look, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do
it. That's very true. How can people find y'all? And where can they go to sign up if they wanted to become a member of or do they have the ability to come try something out?
You can always come as a guest for one or two of our events. I'm always happy to register somebody who just wants to see what it looks like. Of course, like a lot of organizations, we live and breathe online. So we have an online application at granburychamber.org. And
Grand Prairie.
Golly.
You picked the worst city to come to, if that's your grand
or the worst city to come from. Maybe.
The worst named, because it's like they're so similar.
Actually, I can sling it together and it sounds identical.
When I say that, when people ask me where I live when I'm over the phone, they're like, Granbury? No, Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie. Yeah. grandprairiechamber.org. But yeah, that we would love to have somebody become a member. But more importantly, it's really about building relationships, and that's what the chamber stands for. I'll tell you a great little side story. When I was in Granbury, I got a phone call from a very nice lady who could have sworn that Living Spaces was opening up in Granbury. And I said, no, ma'am, they're opening up in Grand Prairie. And she just didn't want to believe me that it wasn't. And you look at the store that's here in Grand Prairie, and there's no way a store like that would survive in Granbury. Right. It's a big place.
That is. Now we just need some grocery stores on the north side of town. That's a number one complaint people have, I think, in Grand Prairie.
And I can see that.
It's crazy how we'll support these businesses, but then you're like, why can't we get it good? But we do have grocery stores, yes. But just, yeah. So do you have any success stories that you want to share that are like one that you can think of where you've seen somebody's business grow and it ended up becoming very successful over time?
It's mostly just anecdotally.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard in my position to get too attached to an individual mm-hmm. situation. What I like is, and as I mentioned this at the very beginning, when people get together at a chamber event and they end up doing business as a result of that, that's really where we create a win for ourselves.
Right.
And what they do after that is entirely up to them.
Sure.
But one of my favorite chamber stories was in San Marcos. There's a gentleman who builds hotels out of Springfield, Missouri. His name was John Q. Hammonds. And he walked into, this was before I got there, but he walked into the San Marcos Chamber of Commerce and met with the chamber president at that time. And they ended up building an embassy suites and a 78,000 square foot conference center as a result of the visit with the Chamber of Commerce. So, business does start with the chamber. Sometimes it's just sit down, talk about the market, talk about what excites you about the market that can lead to greater things. And that's the beauty of a chamber.
That's amazing. That's a good story. Well, I just want to thank you for spending your time today.
Thanks for the ask.
Yes, I'm glad that you came, especially since you didn't know me before I asked you. I must be very. I'm very blessed that people say yes when I ask them to come on the podcast.
I will return your emails and your phone calls from now on. I can promise you that, Jenna.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks very much.